the honorable visit of the Honorable Vice President of India to Cambodia. Today we have with us Secretary East, Shri Saurabh Kumar sir, who will give you a sense of his engagements today and also what is coming tomorrow. We also have with us Ambassador of India to ASEAN, Jayan sir, and Ambassador of India to Cambodia, Divyani ma'am. From the Ministry we have JS South, Vishwas sir, and JSIP, Yadika ma'am. Without further ado, sir, I'll hand over the mic to you for some opening remarks and then we can take some questions.
So good evening, friends. My apologies for being late. So let me just run you through Vice President's program today. What he did yesterday, I would briefly cover that, and what is scheduled for tomorrow. So today, the Honorable Vice President of India, Shri Jagdeep Dhankarji, participated in the 19th ASEAN-India Summit. This summit has been designated, as you all know, ASEAN-India Commemorative Summit to mark the 30th anniversary of ASEAN-India relations. The Honorable Vice President had good exchange of views with the ASEAN leaders. The summit is historic as it would elevate the ASEAN-India relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership. Just now, the relationship is designated as a strategic partnership. After today's summit, it would be called, or it is called a comprehensive strategic partnership. The outcome document of today's meeting, establishing a comprehensive strategic partnership, has already been loaded on the MEA website, so you all can have a look at it. This partnership would focus on practical cooperation in 5 areas, and I would just spell them out for you. Advanced maritime cooperation in areas of maritime security, disaster management, emergency response and relief, as well as through implementation of projects under ASEAN Outlook of Indo-Pacific and Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative. So I think this gives the maritime thrust to the relationship. Second point is strengthening cooperation in cybersecurity, digital economy, fintech cooperation, including exploring interoperability of digital financial systems. Third area would be enhanced cooperation in the field of sustainable development with focus on new and emerging technology in areas such as renewable energy, smart agriculture, smart cities, healthcare, and cooperation in the space sector. Fourth point is promote revival of tourism and enhance youth-centric activities to promote people-to-people connectivity. And lastly, work together on regional and global issues of common concern to promote peace, stability, and prosperity in the region. As I have already mentioned, the joint statement on comprehensive strategic partnership of the leaders has been uploaded on MEA's website. A few other points at the summit today. Honorable Vice President underlined the centrality of ASEAN in India's vision of the Indo-Pacific. He noted that partnership with ASEAN is the key pillar of India's Act East policy. So this is our position, and it was a reiteration by the Vice President at the summit. Honorable Vice President highlighted the importance of greater physical, digital, and people-to-people connectivity between ASEAN and India. He underlined the need for greater cooperation in our shared journey of digital transformation through enhanced cooperation in smart city and fintech. These are the points I have earlier mentioned also. Calling for greater economic engagement between India and ASEAN, Honorable Vice President underlined the need for early conclusion of the ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement to make it more trade facilitative. It received the support of all ASEAN leaders. So I think this is also an important outcome. We have been working on it, and I think it was re-emphasized during the summit. Honorable Vice President also underlined the importance of enhancing ASEAN-India cooperation in face of global challenges to ensure our climate, health, food and energy security. He announced the additional contribution of $5 million by India to the ASEAN-India Science and Technology Fund to enhance our cooperation on emerging areas of public health, renewable energy, smart agriculture, and blue economy. The Vice President will also participate in the 17th East Asia Summit tomorrow, which will be chaired by Cambodia in its capacity as the ASEAN chair. During the summit, the Honorable Vice President is expected to reaffirm the importance of East Asia Summit as a premier leaders-led forum in the region and would underscore the centrality of ASEAN and ASEAN-led mechanism in the Indo-Pacific. He will also exchange views on issues of regional and global importance. So I think this brings me to an end as far as his multilateral engagements were concerned. Vice President, as you all know, had bilateral engagements with the Cambodian side. I would just give you a quick read-up on that. So as we are reaching the end of day 2 of Vice President's visit, let me take you through briefly and sequentially on what has transpired thus far on the bilateral front, and also try and give you some sense of the outcomes of these meetings. We had reached Phnom Penh yesterday evening. The very first program. So this, I'm just stepping back and going to yesterday's program before I come to what happened on the bilateral front today. The very first program yesterday was the dance performance organized by the Cambodian Ministry of Culture and Fine Arts in honor of the Honorable Vice President. This performance was an episode from Mahabharat by a Kathakali dance troupe from India. Prior to the Kathakali dance performance, there was a Cambodian dance performance of 2 scenes from the Mahabharat. So this was again done by Cambodian troops, but the focus was again on Mahabharat. As you all are aware, we have civilizational connection with Cambodia, which goes back into history. After the cultural program, Honorable Vice President saw a painting exhibition by the ASEAN India and Cambodian of India. Though there is a small Indian community in Cambodia, it was good to see so many turning up for the event, along with our Cambodian friends. Minister of Culture of Cambodia graciously kept company and was there right through the cultural performance and also during the community event which the Vice President had. Just a little bit of elaboration on this painting exhibition. This was part of the 30-year celebrations between India and ASEAN. We had a group of ASEAN artists, 10 of them, which came to India. We had 10 Indian artists also. And in Udaipur, they, for 9 days, they worked, alongside each other and created these paintings. So this was again, emphasizing the youth cooperation between India and Cambodia, India and ASEAN. And I think in the Cambodian context, I think given our cultural and civilizational connect and in the larger Southeast Asian context, this exhibition had a great significance. So coming to today on the bilateral front, the first program of today was the meeting between Honorable Vice President and Prime Minister Hun Sen. Prime Minister Hun Sen thanked Vice President for attending the summit and congratulated him for assuming the office of Vice President. He said that Vice President's visit would strengthen bilateral relations between our two countries. He also expressed condolence for the Morbi tragedy, the collapse of the bridge. PM Hun Sen mentioned that India was the first democratic country to recognize Cambodian government following the ouster of Khmer Rouge. He recalled his visit to India in 1981, soon after we recognized the Cambodian government, when he was only 29 years old and a foreign minister, and appreciated the support which India has given Cambodia right from that time, both in the political as well as in the economic area. As well as on the cultural front, I think restoration of cultural heritage of Cambodia has been an area in which we have been very extensively engaged, starting from mid-80s up to mid-90s. I think we were one of the first countries to come in and do the renovation work at Angkor Wat. Prime Minister Hun Sen also made a reference to the importance his government is giving to demining with the objective of making Cambodia a mine-free country by 2025. And in this context, thanked India for the support it has been getting from India. He expressed his desire for enhanced bilateral trade and growth in cooperation and sought more assistance in the areas of agriculture and irrigation. I may mention out here that we already have a line of credit of $102 million, which is presently under operation, and irrigation and power transmission projects are being undertaken by the Cambodian government utilizing this line of credit. Vice President in return congratulated Cambodia for its successful presidency of Asean and 7 decades of India-Cambodia bilateral relations. He emphasized the importance of Cambodia in India's Act East policy. He assured further support in preservation of cultural heritage, demining, human resource development, and capacity building. Vice President thanked Cambodia for its support for India's permanent membership of the UN Security Council and mentioned that we are looking forward to the visit of Deputy Commander-in-Chief, General Hun Manat, to India at an early date. So the dates for this visit are presently under discussion. 3 memorandums of understanding and 1 financing agreement were exchanged in the presence of Honorable Vice President and Prime Minister Hun Sen. I would just quickly list these out. Cooperation in the field of health and medicine between the respective health ministries, cooperation in biodiversity conservation and sustainable wildlife management between respective ministries of environment. Third would be cooperation in the field of research, development and application of technology for digital documentation of cultural heritage between IIT Jodhpur and Institute of Technology Cambodia. And lastly, this third one would be utilized for digitization of documents, Buddhist documents which Cambodia has. With Pali, huh? Yeah. And the last one is a financing agreement on conservation and preservation of Ramayana murals at Wat Raja Bo Pagoda in Siem Reap, Cambodia. So again, you can see the cultural heritage element of our cooperation. As part of demining support, which I have already referred to, India will be providing a grant assistance of over 426,000 US dollars for demining in 3 districts and 1 commune in the country. And I think after this activity is undertaken, these areas, the 3 districts and the commune, would be completely mine-free. 426,000 US dollars. So earlier in August 2020, India and Cambodia had signed a G2G agreement. This again is, I am dwelling upon, giving you a little bit of background on the demining cooperation. In August 2020, we had signed a government-to-government agreement for provision of US $1.5 million grant for provision of demining equipment to the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces. India has gifted 15 trained mine sniffer dogs to Cambodia. 4 more trained mine sniffer dogs would be gifted, and of this 1.5 million US dollar, 20% has already been given, and demining equipment would be procured utilizing this money. Honorable Vice President also announced increase in the number of Indian technical and economic cooperation slots for Cambodia, increasing them from 200 to 250, and increase in ICCR scholarships from 30 to 50. This again is a part of capacity building and human resource development cooperation which we have. During VP's meeting with President of the Senate, His Excellency Sechum, the following was agreed to exchange parliamentary, to enhance parliamentary cooperation. Vice President invited President of the Senate and parliamentary delegation to visit India. President of the Senate gladly accepted the invitation, and the dates would be worked out through diplomatic channels. Both sides agreed to renew an MOU for parliamentary cooperation, which we had and has lapsed, and that would be renewed again. And it was also agreed to continue with capacity building. This again is, as I mentioned, important area of our cooperation. So in the parliamentary domain also, we have been undertaken, and we would continue capacity building cooperation. His Majesty King Norodom Sihamoni received the Vice President at the Royal Palace with a lot of warmth and grace this evening. This was in fact Vice President's last engagement before he returned to the hotel. His Majesty recalled relations between his father, King Norodom Sihanouk, and the Indian leadership, and the good relations which exist between the two countries at present. He thanked India for supporting Cambodia at all times, particularly during the difficult periods of Cambodia. He also thanked India for its support in all sectors to help the country develop. He conveyed his warmest regards and affection to our Prime Minister and to the President. Vice President conveyed to His Majesty that Cambodia is not just in India's extended neighborhood, but is a part of India's extended family. The Honorable Vice President conveyed that we are looking forward to His Majesty and Queen Mother's long overdue visit to India. And we would be working with the Cambodian side for this particular visit. Honorable Vice President conveyed the greetings of President and Prime Minister of India to the King. Vice President also today, between the meeting with at the Senate and at the Royal Palace, visited the National Museum of Cambodia, which is home to a very fine collection of art pieces. Those of you who have been there know what I am talking of. If some of you have not been there, please go there. Honorable Vice President and his spouse had a guided tour of the museum. Let me emphasize that all bilateral meetings of the Honorable Vice President were held in an atmosphere of great warmth and friendship. And we are very confident that this very important and significant visit of the Vice President, which is taking place after 7 years, the last time when Vice President was here was in 2015. So this visit would take our relationship further ahead, deepen our historical bonds of friendship. So let me conclude by just mentioning that tomorrow, following participation in the East Asia Summit, as I've already mentioned, on his way back to India, Vice President would stop at Siem Reap, where he would inaugurate the Hall of Dancers at the Taprong Temple and also visit Angkor Wat. Both these sites are where Archaeological Survey of India has been involved in conservation and preservation work of cultural heritage, which I have referred to earlier. So thank you very much for your patience. It was a long briefing, but Vice President had a hectic schedule. I thought it would be good to go over all of it.
Thank you, sir, for sharing with us the details of the Vice President's engagements. I'll now open the floor to questions. Please introduce yourselves and your organization for the record. Could you use the mic, please?
Sir, in the sideline of Asean, Mr. Jaishankar also met with the counterparts of Canada and Australia. Can you please briefly tell us about that?
Yeah, I think we can take more questions. Yeah.
Any other? Okay.
So, Bharti Gai from PTI. So, this is the defense ministers of Asean countries in India have a meeting on November 20. So, what are expectations?
Just to remind everyone, this briefing is on the visit of the Vice President. Let's try and limit our questions to that, please.
मेरा नाम उमेश शर्मा है, मैं संसद टीम से। अगर बात ट्रेड की करें तो आने वाले दिनों में भारत और आसियान देशों की ट्रेड को आप कितना बढ़ता देखते हैं?
सर, मैं मनोहर सिंह यूएनआई वार्ता से आपके टीम के बाद मेरे दिमाग में 2-3 सवाल उठे हैं। कुछ तो एक तो आसियान के बारे में है। आसियान इंडिया क्रिकेट एग्रीमेंट हुआ है, अभी बहुत ज़्यादा प्रोग्रेस नहीं हुई। आसियान इंडिया एफिलिएशन इसको रिव्यू करने जा रहे हैं, आपको उम्मीद है कि ज़्यादा अच्छी तरह से। दूसरा है कंबोडिया के बारे में। यहाँ के मिलिट्री के डिप्टी चीफ की यात्रा का क्या सिग्निफिकेंस है? और दूसरा, जब हम कंबोडिया के साथ व्यापार बढ़ाना चाहते हैं और कंबोडिया को मानते हैं कि हमारा परिवार था, जिस तरह परिवार है, लेकिन आज तक कंबोडिया और भारत के बीच में एक जो यात्रा है वो सीधी नहीं पड़ता है। तो इस संबंध में इस यात्रा में क्या बात है?
So I think you can take this answer.
So, मनोहर जी, जो FTA है, इसके मैं आपको बताना चाहूँगा कि कहाँ पे हैं हम लोग। इसका रिव्यू हो रहा है। रिव्यू के लिए स्कोपिंग एक्सरसाइज होनी थी कि रिव्यू का स्कोप क्या होएगा। वो स्कोपिंग एक्सरसाइज ख़त्म हो गई है, उस पर अब अग्रीमेंट है और अब रिव्यू की जो कार्यवाही होएगी वो शुरू होएगी। तो आज जब इंडिया आसियान मीटिंग हुई, उसमें सभी देशों का, इंडिया का भी, हम लोगों का एक्सपेक्टेशन है कि ये जो रिव्यू एक्सरसाइज होएगी ये जल्दी होएगी और जो हमारा नया अग्रीमेंट निकलेगा वो ट्रेड फैसिलिटेटिव होएगा, बिजनेस फ्रेंडली होएगा और उसके अंतर्गत जो ट्रेड और व्यापार होएगा उसमें हमको बढ़ावा मिलेगा। उमेश जी, आपने भी ट्रेड के बारे में पूछा था। हमारा बायलैटरल ट्रेड जो है हमारी फिगर्स के अनुसार 110 बिलियन है और हमें विश्वास है कि ये और बढ़ेगा और ये जो अटीगा का जो रिव्यू प्रोसेस है वो अगर कंप्लीट हो जाता है तो वो इस ट्रेड ग्रोथ को और भी मोमेंटम इम्पैक्ट करेगा। मनोहर जी, आपका जो दूसरा क्वेश्चन था, जो इनके डिप्टी कमांडर इन चीफ की जो विज़िट है, हर विज़िट महत्वपूर्ण अपने में होती है। ये डिप्टी कमांडर इन चीफ हैं, तो हमारा, जैसे मैंने आपको बताया था, डिफेंस एरिया एक एरिया है जिसमें हम लोग अपने रिलेशनशिप को आगे बढ़ाना चाहते हैं। हमने लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट भी कंबोडिया को ऑफ़र किया हुआ है और हुन मानद जी की जब विज़िट होएगी तो डिफेंस कॉपरेशन के बारे में, लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट जो हमने दिया है उसके यूटिलाइजेशन के बारे में, इन सभी मुद्दों पे वार्तालाप होएगी। और हमारे जो आर्मी टू आर्मी रिलेशनशिप है, जिनको स्टाफ टॉक्स हम कहते हैं, तो उन सब मुद्दों पे भी विचार विमर्श किया जाएगा। आपने डायरेक्ट कनेक्टिविटी की भी बात कही है। ये कनेक्टिविटी आसियान के साथ, जैसे ही हमने बताया, ये एक अहम प्रमुख मुद्दा है और रोड कनेक्टिविटी पे हम लोग काम कर रहे हैं, काफ़ी बातचीत हुई है। एयर कनेक्टिविटी भी इम्पोर्टेंट है और इसमें भी हमारा ध्यान है और हम आगे बढ़ने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। यहाँ पे कल्चरल हेरिटेज इतनी अच्छी है। अभी हमारे जो टूरिस्ट आते हैं भारत से, उनकी संख्या बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं है, लेकिन कनेक्टिविटी बढ़ेगी, अवेयरनेस बढ़ेगी, तो हम उम्मीद रखते हैं कि यहाँ पे भारत से जो हमारे टूरिस्ट हैं वे ज़्यादा आएंगे और हम यहाँ से भी भारत जाने वाले जो टूरिस्ट हैं उनको भी बढ़ावा देना चाहेंगे। डिफेंस मिनिस्टर्स मीटिंग के बारे में ये पहली बार, मुख्य बात ये है कि जब ये मीटिंग होएगी इसी महीने में बाद में, तो ये पहली बार इंडिया आसियान डिफेंस मिनिस्टर्स मीटिंग होएगी, जो कि ADMM प्लस जो मैकेनिज्म है उसके साइडलाइंस पे होएगी। और किस मुद्दों पे बात करी जाएगी ये अभी बताना प्रीमेच्योर होएगा हमारे लिए, लेकिन मैं अपेक्षा करता हूँ कि जितने भी इम्पोर्टेंट मुद्दे हैं, बायलैटरल मुद्दे जो हमारे दूसरे देशों के साथ हैं और जो हमारे आसियान के साथ जो रिलेशनशिप है डिफेंस और सिक्योरिटी साइड में, इन सब में विचार एक्सचेंज होएगा। सुशील जी, आपने I think you asked about EM's meetings. All I can say is EM had a good exchange of views with his Ukrainian and Canadian counterpart. Of course, with the Ukrainian side, you can imagine that, apart from a bilateral relationship, the state of play as far as the situation in Ukraine is concerned, I think those aspects were discussed. And with his Canadian counterpart, he had a good discussion, covered our bilateral relationship, discussed about community welfare, aspects like our trade. So all the entire gamut of relationship were discussed. G20 also figured in the discussions which he had with the Canadian side.
One more question.
I'm Vishal from the news. I think it's very interesting addressing techniques together, and as you said that Cambodia has been a great support of India as part of the conference when it's concerned. And now taking the issue of maritime security and the Indo-Pacific region, how important would be the defense ministers summit and also the support of the ASEAN towards it?
So I have a related question. When we talk about advancing maritime cooperation, I'm Tina from Sansad TV. I'm here as part of the ASEAN Media Exchange Program. My question is related to the maritime cooperation, and since it figures prominently in the 5 focus areas as part of the comprehensive strategic partnership between ASEAN and India. The fact is that ASEAN does not have a sectoral institution that deals with maritime issues. So how difficult does it make for India, or when we talk about advancing engagement on maritime issues, how do we tackle these together?
We'll do this last round.
So maritime, there are several mechanisms which we have with ASEAN. ASEAN Regional Forum, for example, is a body where confidence building measures in different areas are discussed, and maritime aspects are discussed there. I think this is one of the bodies which is there. So they have their outlook for the Indo-Pacific. We have our Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative, and one of the themes, which was conveyed by almost, at least by most of the leaders in the meeting today, was to come up with practical areas of cooperation in the maritime domain. So we do not see any difficulties in terms of implementation. We have, things like HADR, search and rescue, and we are looking at SOPs or standard practices in these areas. So these discussions are already going on. We also do things like we have workshops on blue economy which would be held. In the past, we have done things like plastics in the ocean. So I think there was a thing. So of course, the effort would be to see how the institutional framework is strengthened, but not to say that we do not have any institutional framework to carry out the activities. I think I have answered your question also when I said that Indo-Pacific, ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific, and our Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative were themes, and how we can build upon these themes were mentioned by almost all the leaders when they spoke today.
Thank you so much, sir, for sparing time for the briefing. Thank you, friends from the media. Stay tuned to our social media handles and our website for further. Thank you so much. We'll do that. We'll do that shortly. We are on our